I hope everyone's had a wonderful weekend. Here's our story for tonight. It's called Lyle at the Office. It's by Bernard Waber. And we're ready to get started. Lyle at the Office. Everybody thought Lyle the crocodile was funny. Not silly funny or funny looking, just plain funny. And wherever he went, Lyle always made people smile and forget their troubles. At the supermarket, shoppers perked up the instant they saw Lyle. "We should offer Lyle a job," said the store's manager. "Then we could always count on having happy customers." In the park, frowns turned into big smiles the minute Lyle appeared, especially when he performed his tricks. "Do you suppose Lyle would consider working for us?" said the park's commissioner. "Our parks could use more cheer these days." And once a man wanted to use a smiling picture of Lyle in a toothpaste advertisement. "Listen to this," said the man. "Smile like Lyle. Now isn't that catchy?" "No, thank you," the Prims always answered politely but firmly. "Lyle is happy with his life, just as it is." Lyle was happy, all right, living with Mr. and Mrs. Prim, their children Joshua and Miranda, and his dear mother Felicity, or Nurse Felicity, as she was known at the hospital where she worked. Lyle loved to entertain the family, as he did one night, parading in the pirate costume he would soon be wearing on Halloween. It was a joyful house, made even more joyful by the arrival of the baby Miranda. Lyle adored showing off pictures of Miranda, and he almost burst with pride and did 3 somersaults when his name was among the first words Miranda learned to say. "Lyle, Lyle," she would coo to him. Yes, it was a good life, especially for a crocodile. And good things were always happening. One day Mr. Prim took Lyle along for a visit to his office. Mr. Prim knew how eager Lyle was to visit, and how much everyone at the office wanted to meet Lyle. Lyle gleefully waved goodbye as the two set off for work. As usual, morning traffic was heavy. And after much beeping and honking, Mr. Prim and Lyle finally arrived at the office building. It was fun going through the revolving doors. Lyle went round and round and round. He loved pressing the elevator buttons. Up they went. Everyone in the office was so happy to see Lyle. Lyle quickly made himself useful, sharpening pencils and delivering memos and operating the copying machine. He made so many friends. They all commented on his good manners. Lyle even sat in on a very important meeting. He enjoyed an excellent lunch and delightful company in the office cafeteria. Lyle had 2 slices of pizza and an orange drink. Best of all, Lyle visited the company's daycare center. He spent much of the day joyfully playing with and amusing the children. But when it was time to say goodbye, the children cried, "We want to stay with Lyle. Please, Lyle, promise to come back," said some of the parents. Sadly, Lyle waved goodbye to the children and returned to Mr. Prim's room. Mr. Prim was busy trying to think up new ideas for Crispy Crunchy Crackles cereal. That was Mr. Prim's job, thinking up ideas. But at the moment, Mr. Prim had no ideas whatsoever. Absolutely none. Feeling rather empty, Mr. Prim shared a sample box of Crispy Crunchy Crackles with Lyle. Pop, crunch, crackle, crackle, crunch. Although Lyle tried to be quiet about it, everyone was startled by the loud popping, crunching, crackling sounds he made chewing Crispy Crunchy Crackles. Pop, crunch, crackle, crackle, crunch. Even Mr. Big, who was Mr. Prim's boss, and a very busy person at that, heard him chewing all the way down the hall. "Who is making that racket?" shouted Mr. Big. Mr. Big quickly discovered it was Lyle who was making the racket. He was so surprised. "Does Lyle really like eating crispy, crunchy crackles?" asked Mr. Big. "Of course," said Mr. Prim. "Doesn't everybody?" Suddenly, Mr. Big's face lit up. It lit up the way it always lit up whenever Mr. Big had a brainstorm. That's it, said Mr. Big. "Our new slogan will be, everybody, but everybody, loves crispy, crunchy crackles. And we'll put Lyle's picture on the cereal box." "How's that for a terrific idea?" said Mr. Big. "Oh, no," said Mr. Prim. "Oh, yes," said Mr. Big. "But you can't put Lyle's picture on a cereal box," said Mr. Prim. "And why not?" said Mr. Big. "Because, well, Lyle is a very private crocodile." "Nonsense. No such thing as private. I'll call the photographers at once." "This is dynamite," said Mr. Big. "I can see it now," said Mr. Big, Lyle smiling, holding a bowl filled with delicious, nutritious, crispy, crunchy crackles in one hand, a gleaming spoon in the other, saying, "Yum, yum, yummy, yum, yum. Oh, how I love my crispy, crunchy crackles." "Lyle will never say yum, yum, yummy, yum, yum," said Mr. Prim, "nor will his picture be on a cereal box." "We'll discuss all that later," said Mr. Big, dialing the photographers. "We won't ever discuss it," said Mr. Prim, walking out with Lyle. "Where are you going with Lyle?" called Mr. Big. "Prim, come back here. Prim! Prim!" "Sir, consider yourself dismissed." A fuming Mr. Big shouted after them, "And that goes for your crocodile, too," he added rather foolishly. When the family heard about it, Joshua thought it might have been really neat and great fun for kids to have Lyle's picture on thousands of cereal boxes. But Mrs. Prim definitely agreed with Mr. Prim. "No cereal boxes," she said. "And no job," said Mr. Prim. "We'll all do just fine, thank you," said Mrs. Prim. And the family did do just fine. Each soon found a way to earn money. Joshua walked dogs. Lyle took plant-sitting jobs. Felicity put in extra hours at the hospital. Mrs. Prim worked late into the night in her home office. She wrote about new books for a neighborhood newspaper, and every day Mr. Prim looked for a new job. Meanwhile, back at the office, everyone missed Mr. Prim, even Mr. Big. And the daycare center children kept asking for Lyle. More cheerfully, the family had so much looked forward to Halloween, and at long last the big night had arrived. Lyle finally got to wear his pirate costume. Joshua dressed up as a monster, and Miranda was an adorable little witch. Mr. and Mrs. Prim and Felicity accompanied them trick-or-treating. "Trick or treat, they called out as doors swung open and their bags filled with Halloween goodies. But there was one doorbell they dared not ring. That bell belonged to the run-down, gloomy house they were just passing. "What a pity," said Mrs. Prim about the house. "It's been empty for years," said Mr. Prim. "That's because it's haunted," said Joshua. "Everyone knows there are ghosts inside." "Ghosts!" Lyle's eyes widened. "And do you know what?" Joshua went on. "Cries for help have been heard coming from inside the house." "Oh, Joshua," said Mrs. Prim. Mrs. Prim was about to add, "That's just gossip," when suddenly, in fact, they heard cries for help coming from the house. "What was that?" said Mr. Prim. "Help! Help!" "Those are real cries," said Mrs. Prim. "Hello in there," called Mr. Prim. "Help! Help!" a voice called back. Even though he was scared silly of ghosts, Lyle pushed in the door only to discover Mr. Big. But what was Mr. Big up to now? Well, at that moment, it seemed he was busy clinging for dear life to a ceiling light fixture. "Help! Help!" cried Mr. Big. "My ladder has fallen, and I can't get down." Lyle set the ladder upright and helped a very shaken Mr. Big come down. Oh, Lyle, everyone, thank you, said Mr. Big. You saved my life, and I was here all alone putting light bulbs in this house, which I will soon be moving into. When you're moving into this house, they exclaimed. Everyone was so surprised. Well, welcome, and good luck in your new home, said Mr. Prim. Thank you, said Mr. Big. And good luck with the ghost, thought Lyle. Day after day, the family watched Mr. Big's house being renovated. Before long, the old, neglected house was sparkly bright. It looked so nice. Lyle began to wonder if it was still haunted. One day, a letter from Mr. Big arrived at the house on East 88th Street. Mrs. Prim read it. Dear Prims, and dear Lyle and Felicity, please come to my housewarming party. It's next Saturday afternoon at 2. And the letter was signed, Your new neighbor and friend, I hope, Alwyn Power Big III. P.S. You can call me Al. Everyone from the office came to the party, and most especially the daycare center children. Please consider coming back to work, Mr. Big said to Mr. Prim. We need you and miss you. And, we'll just forget all about having Lyle's picture on the cereal boxes. Gem of an idea, though it is. Oh, and most important, we would certainly expect many more visits to the office from Lyle. Everyone smiled. Especially Lyle. The end.